Hey plant friends, it's Laura. Welcome back. I hope you are having a wonderful day. In today's plant video, I am going to be showing you my entire philodendron collection, which by my count is 22 or 23 plants. I love philodendrons. They are such a beautiful, diverse plant family. Some of mine are doing really well right now. Some of them are suffering. I'm gonna do this in the style of a houseplant tour. I'm gonna take the camera around and show you these plants in their habitat, how they're doing, and just talk a little bit about each one. So if you're into that, let's get started. We're gonna start over here in this corner because the sun is shining so beautifully on my Philodendron Rojo Congo. These leaves are so huge and shiny, and this plant has kind of gone crazy while being in this corner. It is basically putting out a new leaf every week or two. I'm not exactly sure what I'm gonna do once it gets bigger than this. It's in a really big pot, it's in a good spot, but if it like doubles in size, I guess I can divide it. Anyway, she is happy and very, very beautiful. Moving on to my cabinet, I actually do keep 2 philodendrons in my cabinet. It isn't really what I planned for my cabinet, but these 2 specific philodendrons just do really well with the high humidity. So we have one in there. This is my Philodendron Sodroy. She is so cute. Now I'm kind of confused about this plant. I thought Philodendron Sodroy got really, really big. So I think this must be a miniature variety, or this one is just kind of little runt. She's really, really cute. I'm not complaining, but when I bought her, I really thought she was gonna get really, really massive. She's put out a ton of new leaves, but the leaves are all tiny. They're super sparkly and silver, and she is adorable. And down here is my Philodendron Brandy, and she also is very, very tiny, a lot tinier than I was expecting her to be when I bought her. But I am learning that there are miniature varieties of this plant, and maybe that's just what she is. That is the newest leaf, and it is just as tiny as all of the leaves before it, so it's definitely not getting any bigger. It is climbing up a little trellis, which apparently is supposed to get her to size up, but here we are. I love her anyway. Moving right along, here are 2 of my philodendrons that are kind of recovering from some stress. Back here is my Philodendron Silver Sword, and if you've been following me for a while, you know that this used to be absolutely massive. It was one of my biggest plants, and it outgrew the pot, and I didn't really realize that, so I was continuing to water it, but it wasn't really taking up any of that water because it was so root bound, and then I had to chop it up to save it. So you can see down here, the cuttings are rooted in there. There's some really big cuttings that are doing okay and some smaller cuttings. I think it will take a very, very long time for it to return to its former glory, but that is kind of the plant hobby. Right next door is my Philodendron mikans, and I did feature this in my struggling plants video a few weeks ago. In the video, I talked about all of my plants that are doing poorly and how I'm treating them. And as you can see, this one is definitely on the up and up since that video. So the routine is working. These are some brand new leaves, and I think it's gonna be okay. I've pinned all of those stems to the soil. Maybe they will root, maybe they won't, but it's kind of a fresh start for the mikans. I'm hoping that we are finally rid of all of the thrips that were bothering this plant. This leaf looks super healthy. She's looking really good. All right, next door is my Philodendron Periso Verde. And I've talked about this plant a lot. Basically, it lost its variegation. There is some brand new leaves coming in here, so I'm always hopeful that these leaves are gonna have some variegation. But as you can see, we have no variegation right there, and it's living right under a grow light now. That is what I'm trying. This plant also used to be massive, but I chopped it down in the hopes of bringing the variegation back. So I'm very excited about these new leaves. I am kind of tempted to pull them out just to see what they look like. Should I do that? Would that be terrible? I might do that right now. Now, I don't actually recommend doing this because often I will rip the leaf, but sometimes they get really stuck and the leaf will rip as well. So always make sure you mist the leaf, and then you just carefully kind of work it out of the sheath. Oh, success. Okay, now I still can't see if it's variegated, but I'm not gonna force it open, but at least it's out. Can we see at all if it's variegated? Sometimes you can kind of just shimmy it open. Okay. This is terrible. You should never do this. Okay, I can't see. I can't see. It looks pretty pale, which is how the leaves come out, but we can't see if it's variegated. Anyway, that's my periso varity. She is what she is. Moving on down this shelf is my Philodendron domesticum. She is a stunner. This plant I got recently in an import, and she has just been growing and growing and growing since I got her. I feel like this plant is very underrated. The variegation is beautiful and she grows really, really quickly. What's very interesting about this plant as well is the variegation develops over time. So this leaf just recently opened. As you can see, the variegation is very faint, and then over time it gets more and more white, which is really, really fun to watch. It makes all of the new leaves very exciting because you really don't know how they're gonna look until they've been unfurled for a couple weeks. Tater's really enjoying the philodendron tour so far. Never mind. Okay, so moving on up the shelf, there's no philodendrons on that level. Moving on up, so this is my Philodendron Florida Green, not a Florida Ghost. It is not variegated, but this plant just will give and give and give. Keeps growing. It's growing all the way up to the ceiling. So beautiful. This moss pole has really helped it have a nice structure. I can just let it go and then attach it as it grows up. Philodendron Florida I have cut so many times, given cuttings away, and it just keeps going. I've had zero pest issues with this philodendron as well, and I highly recommend it. I have considered getting a Florida Beauty and a Florida Ghost. I haven't just yet because I love this one so much and it brings me so much joy, and I already have it. Down beside the Philodendron Florida is my Philodendron Birkin. And I have talked about Birkins before as being super, super easy plants, and I stand by that. I kind of went too far with treating this like an easy plant, and I totally forgot to water it for quite a while, and it did lose some leaves, but it is doing okay now. So it is a really, really easy plant, but you can't actually just neglect it completely like I did. It was kind of at the back of a plant shelf and I just didn't see it. And I'm sorry, Birkin, but here she is. She's doing fine and she's recovering just fine. And as you can see, she is the front of a shelf, so I will not forget about her again. Now over here is my Philodendron Jose Buono, and this plant is also making me so happy these days. It is putting out tons of new leaves all of the time, and they all have such beautiful patterns. I think this plant might also be underrated, kind of like the domesticum. I have seen photos of Jose Buono and I thought, wow, that's a beautiful plant, but I didn't fully understand how beautiful it is. Like in person, it is absolutely stunning, and I'm so glad that I got it. I was kind of on the fence and then I just went for it, and I am never disappointed. I've had it for a couple months and it's put out like 4 new leaves, and all of them have been absolutely perfect and stunning, and no signs of thrips yet, which is great. I feel like thrips would love this plant. I don't know why I feel that way. I just feel like the thickness of the leaf is kind of similar to all of the other plants that thrips tend to like. So hopefully I will keep it safe from thrips. I've been spraying it with foliar spray to be preventative, and so far so good. Look at that leaf. The leaf is so beautiful. All right, downwards. Here's my Philodendron Pink Princess, and she is doing the best that she's ever done. She's got quite a bit of pink here. And I guess that's maybe because I have her quite close to the grow light. The grow light is right there, and so it doesn't shine directly onto her, but she's still getting quite a bit of light. And look at all this pink. It's also just possible that it took a while for the variegation to kind of come out. This is a mixed pot of 2 different cuttings that I had, and one of them definitely has more pink, but they both do have pink at different times. I've definitely been tempted to buy one of the big pink princesses that are everywhere for like $10. But I have this one and I'm trying to just be happy with what I have. She is really beautiful and I don't want to just compare her to all the other specimens, but you know, she doesn't have a ton of pink, but still, she's really cute. And down here is my Philodendron Dark Lord. I'll just pull that out. This pot is really heavy, so there it is. Now, this plant also I feel like is somewhat underrated. This plant grows really fast, and I know I say that while it only has 2 leaves, but I chop this plant constantly. There is quite a market for Philodendron Dark Lord cuttings, so I do snip it and sell the cuttings so that I can buy more plants. But I try to always keep at least 2 to 3 leaves just so I don't kill the plant. And it just keeps on putting out new leaves and being happy. I think probably this plant would benefit from getting more light. I just don't have a good spot for it at the moment. I think when it gets more light, it has larger leaves, but the leaves are, you know, somewhat sizable. These leaves remind me a lot of Pink Princess leaves. They're kind of burgundy and red toned and dark and moody. Moving on over here, this is a Philodendron Plowmani rooted cutting that I took from the mama plant. I am trying to grow a second plant. I'm not sure yet if I'm gonna keep it or sell it or trade it or what, but it is beautiful. I keep expecting this leaf to fall off, like often happens with a cutting, but this leaf is just hanging on and looking beautiful, so it just looks like I have 2 Plowmani now, which is really cool. This is my Philodendron Milano and it just put out this new leaf, which does not look great. And honestly, I find so many leaves that come out on the Milano are just not that great. I mean, this is a beautiful leaf and this is a beautiful leaf, but then so many of the leaves in between are just really weird. And I don't know, I don't see pests. I've treated for pests. I just don't really know what's going on. It definitely looks like pests. But I think sometimes too, the leaves just kind of get stuck and dried out. There's a bunch of cuttings down here because I did chop it up and propagate. So I'm hoping that all of those cuttings will grow in. And then where there is bald spots because the leaves are terrible, those extra leaves will fill it in. That is my plan anyway. We'll see. I've heard other people say as well that Milano just are really, really finicky, but when you get a good leaf, it is so stunning. And over here is my Philodendron Painted Lady, and she is doing amazing. I did chop her in the summer and propagate and put the cuttings back into the plant so that we will eventually have a really full plant. And I find that the more light she gets, the better the variegation looks. You can see on this leaf, she really has that beautiful watercolor painting look, which is what we're going for. She is a painted lady. But when she doesn't get enough light, she almost just has a pure green leaf. Like this one is sort of almost all green, and that's what happens when she doesn't get enough light, at least in my house. Now down here, this is kind of the place of shame, but this is my Philodendron Nero or tiger tooth. And again, kind of like the silver sword, this used to be a massive plant. It was probably the biggest plant in my collection. And I unfortunately let it get root bound and it suffered and I had to cut it. And actually, as I say this, there's also a Philodendron compact saw in here, which is a really similar plant, but the leaves are not quite as serrated. I decided to combine them because why not? Right now they're both tiny and they can just survive together. Kind of have this like hidden down in the ugly corner of my plant room because it doesn't look like much right now, but it's alive and someday it will return to its huge, beautiful self. I hope. Okay, moving on to this shelf. Down here we have my Philodendron Moonlight. I'll pull it out to show you. And it has a brand new leaf, which is really, really beautiful. It's not as big as the other leaves. I'm not sure why. I don't know what's going on here. So this plant had some thrips for a while, and I think we've definitely gotten a handle on them. But for a while, the new leaves would always come out kind of misshapen or covered in thrips, so I'd have to cut them off. So this plant has remained quite small, but I am hopeful that we have the thrips under control. Honestly, I'm at the point where if I see more thrips on this plant, I might just toss it because I have treated it so many times and it just, I don't know. I do have some theories that thrips enjoy really neon, bright colored plants, but I don't know. Anyway, there is this new leaf here. It looks good so far. I won't bug it too much, but so far so good. And behind the Philodendron Moonlight is my Philodendron Varicosum, and this plant too was on my struggling plant video, but as you can see, it's got a bunch of new little leaves that look really good and overall seems happy. This was a rescue plant. I knew that it was going to be a struggle, but so far so good. I took it on because I think it's worth it. It's so beautiful when it's mature. So I'm just keeping this kind of at the back of the shelf here. It's still getting enough light, and it's still in an adorable pot. But right now it's not much to look at, but I am very, very hopeful that pretty soon it's gonna have some really big, beautiful leaves. And up here is my Philodendron Prince of Orange. It doesn't have any brand new leaves right now. This is its most recent leaf, and it was so vibrant orange. This plant is really on sort of the bounce back route right now. It was suffering for a while, but now it is doing amazing. And I am just always so grateful when it puts out a new leaf because they are bright, bright orange and so beautiful. Now back here is my Philodendron Lemon Lime. It also has a bunch of new leaves. This was on my struggle plants as well. There's a lot of those struggle plants were philodendrons, I guess. It's doing really well, sort of. I mean, it's not much to look at right now, but it's definitely alive. I did propagate some cuttings and put them back in there. That's what you see back there. There are definitely some old leaves that do not look good, but the new leaves all look really beautiful. They're coming out well-shaped, and it is producing new leaves fairly quickly. So that's really exciting. And here's my Philodendron Plowmani mama plant where I took the cutting from. This leaf I think is on its way out. It's looking pretty yellow, but I don't want to cut it off yet because it's still pretty beautiful. And this one is looking pretty good, but has a bit of damage there, but that's okay. And there is 2 growth points in there. I've been fertilizing this plant every single time I water it, which I think it seems to be liking because it put out these growth points, which is very exciting. And up here is my Philodendron gloriosum. I'm really enjoying it up here. It kind of has space to spread out and just seek the sun. I love when it puts out its like sap. It's really cool. And there is a new leaf coming in there as well. This petiole is so weirdly shaped. I don't know why it curves down like that. I hope that we don't lose this leaf. It looks healthy, it's just the stem is really weird, but that's okay. And those are all the philodendrons on that shelf. In here is where I put some of my isolation plants that just cannot be trusted with the other plants. This one is a philodendron. I think this is a Philodendron Plowmani cutting. It is rooted, but it's been sitting here for a long time and I don't know that we're actually gonna get anything out of it. But when I chopped the other cutting off, this cutting just was there and had nothing on it. So I figured, why not start a new plant? We'll see, it's still definitely alive, it's not squishy. So we're just gonna be patient. And then right next door is my Philodendron varicosum. I actually treated this one with sulfur, which is why this leaf looks so bad. I was just not having any luck getting rid of the thrips. So I figured why not go for it? It only had this one leaf anyway, and so I'm not really risking that much. And I covered it with sulfur and I have since rinsed it off. There is some new growth coming in there. And this was, I guess, a cutting, which I actually don't even remember putting in there, but it's there. So yeah, this plant is just really not pretty at the moment, but I have hope. Varicosums are so beautiful that it is worth fighting for. And then I also have a little tiny Philodendron Ring of Fire right here, just a little baby. It's very juvenile right now. It doesn't have a ton of variegation, but I still love it. And I think that is the last philodendron. All right, friends, those are all of my philodendrons. Hopefully you enjoyed seeing them. They enjoyed seeing you. I hope you have an absolutely wonderful day and hope to see you in my next video. Bye.